there's a lot of ways to fight. And not all of them, in fact, many of them are not violently. In fact, sometimes the best strategies are the ones that people don't realize are strategies that they should be opposing. It's part of the reason we are where we are today, because the long game sometimes is a better fight than the immediate game. It's a lot easier to see the tactics that are right in front of you. It's a lot easier to see when someone's, for an example, throwing a punch at you. It's a whole lot harder to see poison. It's really easy to see a direct frontal attack. It's really hard to see when a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend does something malicious that in the short and long term is really going to hurt you. But today I want to talk about another way that we have, especially as Americans, to fight righteously, not violently. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. And yes, we've encountered some very unusual things over the last probably 4 or 5 decades that have been in the works for even longer than that. Things that have taken place in the political scenes of the United States that have taken place way deep in the background. Now, some people would say it's a conspiracy theory to think that anyone outside the realm of our elected politicians would have any influence on our elected politicians. I mean, it's the reason that we have laws against corruption. It's the reason that we have laws against particular forms of campaign financing and the ways that you can invest in someone else's rise to the top, so to speak. But we also tend to have influential voices, whether it be corporate cronies or it be people who have political ideologies that have made their wealth off of capitalism, and now they want to use that wealth to influence what happens in city councils, in local mayoral races, in the dog catcher race, or all the way to the top. Some of those who've made their money are loyalists to the United States. Some of those are genuine patriots, and some of those have a better idea they believe that should replace what we know as our American experiment. Now, the solution to both is the same, believe it or not. Over the last week, I've had the opportunity to be engaged in a little bit of political activity that's going on just in the Dallas area. And when I say political, I want to use that term very loosely, because when I say political, I don't necessarily mean out on the campaign trail pounding the streets. What I do mean is observing how people engage with the politicians who are already in office or those who want to be. And I found something fascinating. Even when a public invitation was made, when they were told, come, join us, be a part of what we're doing, come out here and have a conversation, open in the public, everybody has masks on at most of these events, everybody feels safe, everybody has a voice, the microphone is passed around freely, let me say that in English. And everybody has a chance to share their opinions. And yet, so few people show up. We had a candidate forum yesterday. And of the 14 districts in the Dallas City Council districts, less than half were represented well, either from sitting politicians or candidates who want to replace them. They just don't think you care. Or they don't care what you think. I'm not sure which it is. But I do know this. There weren't many more citizens there than there were politicians or candidates. It was an open public. Lunch was provided for free. It was an open venue. It was an outdoor venue on a beautiful sunshiny day. There was plenty of opportunity to speak your mind, to share your opinions, to express your grievances, and no one could be bothered. That's where we need to fight. If you want to see things change, whether it's in law enforcement or it's in the way that you're taxed on your property, it's whether or not there's a food desert in your community because the grocery store keeps getting robbed, you feel like we have too many police or not enough police, All of those are places where your voice should be heard. But if you're sitting at home stuffing Doritos in your face and you refuse to get involved in a candidate forum or a conversation with local law enforcement or any event that's going on in your public because you just can't be bothered to, there's an old saying, and I don't even know who the original quote was. If you do know, please post it on social media and share it with me. I'd love to know who it was. But they said that Americans always get the government they deserve. Well, if you don't like the government you have, you're going to have to fight for a better one. There's special elections coming up right here in the Dallas area on May 1st. A lot of different city council people are up for contest. A lot of Congress people are up for contest. There are a lot of people whose jobs should be snatched away from them because they're doing such a pitiful job at their job. There are also a lot of people who have better ideas than in what have been expressed over the last decade or so by the sitting incumbent. And as leaders, by that I mean anybody with influence, anybody who can stand on a street corner and say to their neighbors or knock on the door and say to their neighbor, hey, have you heard about so-and-so? This person's got great ideas. I think they would benefit our neighborhood. I would appreciate you taking some time on election day and going down and casting a vote. Make your voice heard. Now, I honestly don't care if I agree with you or I don't. What I do believe is that it's absolutely essential, if you have a voice of influence of any level at all, that you influence the people around you to express their opinion. I don't have to like your opinion, but I do believe you have a right to share it. I want you to take the chance, take the time, get engaged, get involved, get out there and vote while you have the chance to do that. Because if we don't vote while we have the right and the authority to do it, we may lose the right and the authority to do it. Go back and look at all the dictators and all the tyrants over the history of human evolving government forms, whatever government form you want to look at. And what you will find is that at some point the people were free, and not long after that, a dictator or a tyrant took over. If you don't want to live that life while you have the freedom to vote, while you have the opportunity to voice your opinion, while someone cares that you have an opinion, share it. Take the mic, speak your voice, speak your piece. Let people know what you've experienced, because nobody knows what life is like in your skin, in your shoes, in your family, but you. And you have to be heard. And if you don't take the time to be heard, if you don't think anybody's listening, you're wrong. If you don't think it's important for you to share your story, you're wrong. If you want to fight back against the system and the way things are, get off the couch and get to the ballot box. There are a lot of different ways to fight. There are a lot of different ways to try to preserve what we have, a lot of different ways to change the direction of where we're going. If you like the direction we're going, vote that way. If you think there's a better direction, vote that way. If you want to see something entirely different than we've ever seen and you've ever heard proposed, vote that way. And if you really want to get engaged in the fight, run for office. You know, there are city council positions that make decisions like whether or not a road is changed or whether or not a parking lot is paved over or dug up and becomes a local playground. Those decisions are made by people who are local business owners, local moms and dads. And sometimes whether or not that individual gets on the school board or whether or not that individual gets on city council is decided by 900 people. You probably have enough social media friends to get in office. Let that settle in for a moment. You have a chance to make a decision that makes a difference. That means you have a chance to make a difference. If you want to see a difference made, be the change you want to see. Speak up, get out and vote. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.